It doesn't start with rebellion or leather jackets or the roar of pipes. It starts much quieter, much earlier, in the glow of your phone at midnight, scrolling through listings you can't really afford, calculating insurance quotes for bikes you've never even sat on. You open tabs for beginner motorcycles, then somehow drift to leader bikes, knowing full well you're not ready, but unable to stop looking. You watch crash compilation videos at 2 in the morning, telling yourself you're learning what not to do, but really you're trying to scare yourself out of wanting this so badly. You run the numbers again and again. The MSF course costs $250 to $400 depending on where you live. Gear will run you at least $800 for the basics, more if you want actual protection. Insurance quotes come back higher than you expected, especially for that sport bike you keep coming back to. You tell yourself it's practical, that you'll save on gas, that parking will be easier. But that's not why you're here. You're here because something inside you needs to know what it feels like to lean into a corner with nothing but skill and physics keeping you upright. The research phase becomes an obsession. You learn that motorcyclists make up 15% of traffic deaths, despite being a tiny fraction of vehicles on the road. 6,335 riders died in 2023, the highest number ever recorded. You read that helmets reduce death risk by 37% and head injury by 69%. You discover that ABS-equipped bikes have 22% lower fatal crash rates. These numbers should scare you away, but instead they become part of your armor, proof that you're taking this seriously, that you're not like those other riders who don't know the risks. You start recognizing motorcycle sounds on the street. Every bike that passes makes you turn your head. You imagine yourself on each one, wonder if that's the right height, the right weight, the right amount of power. You join forums where people argue about whether 300cc is enough for the highway, or if you need at least 500. You learn about wet clutches and slipper clutches, and why everyone says to avoid anything without ABS for your first bike. The terminology becomes familiar, then comfortable, then part of how you think. The internal negotiation gets louder. Your practical voice lists all the reasons this is dangerous, expensive, unnecessary. Your other voice, the one that's getting stronger, reminds you that you've been playing it safe your whole life. You think about explaining this to your mom, your partner, your coworkers, who will definitely think you're having some kind of crisis. You practice the conversation in your head, how you'll emphasize the safety course, the gear, the small displacement engine you're definitely starting with. You won't mention the statistics you've memorized or the YouTube videos of riders doing things you secretly dream about. Then one day, you see it. Not the bike from your dreams, but something close enough, something real, something actually for sale by someone just 20 minutes away. It's a Ninja 400, or maybe a CB 500F, or an SV 650 that everyone on Reddit says is perfect for beginners. The price is almost reasonable. The seller seems legitimate. Your heart rate picks up as you type the message, trying to sound casual, like you've done this before, like you're not about to make a decision that will divide your life into before and after. The seller responds, "Yeah, come check it out." Suddenly, this is real. You can't sleep that night. You check your bank balance again. Make sure you have enough for the bike, the tax, the registration, the gear you haven't bought yet. You watch videos about what to look for when buying used, how to spot crash damage, what questions to ask. You practice saying things like checking the fork seals and chain tension, even though you're not entirely sure what you're looking for. You set 3 alarms to make sure you don't oversleep. The morning comes slow and then too fast. You drive to meet the seller, parking a little too far away because you don't want them to see you're nervous. The bike is smaller than you expected, or maybe bigger, definitely more real. You can see scratches on the fairings that weren't visible in the photos. The seller explains them away, says everyone drops their first bike, says these are just cosmetic. You nod like this is normal, like you're not calculating whether those scratches mean deeper damage, whether this person is telling you the truth. You throw your leg over the seat for the first time. It's higher than you thought, or maybe lower. Your feet don't quite flat foot, or maybe they do, but it doesn't feel as stable as you imagined. The seller starts it up and the engine shakes the whole frame. It's louder than videos prepared you for, more alive. They offer to let you test ride it, but you haven't even taken the MSF course yet, so you decline, pretending you just don't need to. that you can tell everything you need from looking. The money changes hands. Cash, probably, because that's what everyone recommends for these transactions. The seller signs the title, shows you the VIN, gives you keys that feel impossibly light for something that's about to change your life. They give you advice you only half hear because your brain is screaming that you just bought a motorcycle, that this is actually happening, that there's no taking it back now. Getting it home is its own adventure. Maybe you trailer it, or have a friend who rides help you, or maybe you gear up right there in that parking lot and wobble your way home. Every car feeling like a threat, every intersection an exam you're not prepared for. The clutch is touchier than you expected. The throttle is either too sensitive or not responsive enough. You can't figure out where your feet are supposed to go at stoplights. But you make it home, and when you finally shut off the engine in your driveway, your hands are shaking and you can't stop smiling. The MSF course comes next, or maybe should have come first, but either way you're there now with a dozen other nervous beginners on beaten-up training bikes. The instructor talks about risk offset and target fixation and threshold braking. You practice figure eights in a parking lot until your clutch hand cramps. You learn to trust the bike's gyroscopic force, to look where you want to go, to squeeze the tank with your knees. When you pass the test, it feels like a real accomplishment, even though you know it's just the beginning. Those first weeks on your own bike teach you things the course couldn't. You learn that your specific bike likes to stall if you don't give it enough gas from a stop. You learn that the sweet spot between lugging and over-revving is different than on the training bikes. You discover muscles you didn't know you had as your core adjusts to keeping the bike balanced, as your forearms adapt to working the controls for longer than 20-minute sessions. You stall at a red light during rush hour. Cars honk. Your face burns inside your helmet as you frantically restart, dumping the clutch and lurching forward. You take a corner too wide and feel the edge of panic as you run toward the shoulder, remembering at the last second to look through the turn, to push the inside bar, to trust the physics. You grab too much front brake in a parking lot and feel the front tire skip, your heart stopping for a second before everything settles. But slowly, ride by ride, something changes. The clutch becomes an extension of your left hand. You stop thinking about shifting and just do it. You learn to read the road differently, seeing oil spots and gravel and metal plates as threats your car driving brain never noticed. You develop a sixth sense for which drivers are about to do something stupid, which intersections are dangerous, which blind corners hide deer or dogs or debris. The bike starts talking to you. Not literally, but you begin to understand its language. The engine tone tells you when it's happy, when it wants to shift, when it's cold, and needs a minute. You feel through the bars when the front tire is loading up, through the pegs when the rear is starting to slip. The vibrations that scared you at first become information, feedback, communication between you and this machine that weighs 400 pounds but moves like something alive. You make modifications. Nothing crazy at first, just bar end mirrors because the stock ones vibrate too much, maybe frame sliders because everyone says you need them. Then heated grips for cold mornings, a tail bag for commuting, a phone mount even though you promised yourself you wouldn't be one of those riders staring at GPS. Each change makes the bike more yours, less like something you bought and more like something you built, even if all you did was bolt on accessories. Your riding expands, first just to work and back, then grocery runs, then that twisty road everyone talks about 20 miles out of town. You join a beginner group ride and try to keep up, realizing halfway through that riding your own ride means letting faster people pass, means not trying to match lean angles you're not ready for. You discover that Sunday morning before traffic wakes up is magical, that empty parking lots are perfect for practicing slow-speed maneuvers, that rain isn't as scary as you thought, but requires respect and good tires. The close calls accumulate. A left-turning driver who definitely saw you but pulled out anyway. A deer that appeared from nowhere on your favorite back road. That time you came into a decreasing radius turned too hot and had to trust the bike could lean farther than you'd ever asked it to. Each one teaches you something, adds to your mental database of scenarios and solutions, makes you a little more paranoid and a lot more skilled. You develop rituals, the way you put on your gear in the same order every time. The pre-ride check becomes automatic. Tire pressure, chain tension, brake feel, lights. The post-ride moment where you stand next to the bike for just a second before walking away, like saying goodbye to a friend. You start timing your life around riding weather, checking forecasts obsessively, feeling genuinely sad when rain ruins a planned ride. Then life shifts. Maybe you move somewhere with worse weather or better public transit. Maybe your commute changes and filtering through traffic isn't worth the risk anymore. Maybe you want something bigger for longer trips or smaller for tighter trails, or different for a different kind of riding. Maybe you crash. Nothing serious but enough to make you reconsider, enough to make the bike need more work than it's worth. Maybe you just need the money for something more important, or what other people tell you is more important. The decision to sell hurts more than you expected. You clean the bike obsessively, trying to make it look like it did in your memory of that first day, before the scratches and scuffs and memories accumulated. You take photos from every angle, trying to capture something you can't quite name. You write the listing and struggle to describe what made this bike special, settling for generic phrases about low miles and adult-owned and never dropped, that last one a lie but a harmless one. The buyers who contact you ask the same questions you once asked. You can hear in their voices the same nervous excitement you had. They show up and circle the bike, pointing out the same scratches you pointed out, trying to knock the price down just like you did. When someone finally commits, counting out cash with shaking hands, you want to warn them about everything. The cold starting procedure, the weird noise it makes that's totally normal, the way second gear is notchy until the transmission warms up. You watch them ride away, wobbling slightly, clearly new to this specific bike's friction zone and throttle response. Your garage feels empty in a way that has nothing to do with physical space. The gear hanging on hooks looks purposeless. The smell of oil and rubber fades day by day. You find yourself with free time you don't want, money you saved that doesn't feel like compensation for what you gave up. But the bike haunts you in ways you didn't expect. You still hear engine notes and categorize them. Parallel twin, V-twin, inline four, single-cylinder thump. Your hands phantom shift when you drive your car. Muscle memory reaching for a clutch lever that isn't there. You dream about rides you took and rides you never got to take. Wake up thinking about that perfect morning when everything clicked, when you and the bike moved like one thing, when you finally understood what everyone was talking about. Years pass. You get other bikes or you don't. You tell stories about your first bike that get better with time, forgetting the fear and frustration, remembering only the freedom. You give advice to new riders. Find yourself saying the exact things people told you that you didn't really understand until you lived them. You see someone on a bike just like yours was and feel a pull in your chest. Wonder if that's actually your old bike. Wonder if they know how lucky they are to be at the beginning of this journey. The haunting isn't really about the machine. It's about who you were when you bought it. Brave enough to do something that scared you? Humble enough to learn from every mistake? Alive enough to trade safety for sensation? It's about the version of yourself that existed in that space between fear and joy. The one who knew the statistics but chose to ride anyway. Who understood that some experiences are worth the risk, because the risk is part of the experience. Every motorcycle after your first will be better in measurable ways. More powerful, more refined, more suited to whatever rider you've become. But none will teach you what that first one did. That you're capable of more than you thought. That danger and beauty can exist in the same moment. That sometimes the best decision isn't the safe one, but the one that makes you feel most like yourself. That's why it haunts you. Not because you regret selling it, but because you can never really sell what it gave you. The knowledge that you once chose to really live, even if just for a few thousand miles, even if just for one perfect summer, even if everyone thought you were crazy. The ghost of your first motorcycle isn't trying to torment you. It's trying to remind you that you're still that person who took the risk, who learned the skills, who felt the fear and rode anyway. It's asking what else you're capable of that you haven't tried yet. What other parts of yourself are waiting to be discovered at 7,000 RPM on an empty road at dawn. The haunting is really an invitation to keep becoming who you started becoming the day you handed over that cash and took those impossibly light keys.